so you know what I'm going to be talking about. Firstly, I'm going to be talking about why I chose seaweed in the first place. I then want to introduce you to a molecule called alginates, which is all about seaweed. And I want to tie this into cancer, which I think is a very important thing to talk about. And then finally, I want to back that up with research and give you an honest review of whether I think seaweed could save lives. But as I begin, I would like to ask you a question. Can I have a show of hands if you've ever eaten seaweed before? Almost every one of you. Well, when I started this project, I thought, what is in seaweed? I mean, we know it's a food, it's under the sea, but actually what is in it? And as I started to research this, I found out that there is something in seaweed called alginates. And they have a structure like this. So I want you to focus your attention to this side here. And what you can see is that it's almost like a cage, right? It's a dip. And this is very important because it can hold ions. Ions are charged particles, and alginates love ions, especially iron and calcium. And so, I want to talk to you about why iron and calcium are important. So, to start off with iron, see, we have a lot of iron in our blood, and that's really important, but we also have a lot of iron in our intestines. And too much iron is something that we call excess iron, and that's not always good, because excess iron can cause something called oxidative stress. I want you to think of oxidative stress as molecular rust. Essentially what it does is it breaks down and just damages DNA. And when it does that, it can cause cancer. So obviously not very good. And with calcium, cancer cells can use the signals that come from calcium and it can use it for growth. And that's also not good because we don't want cancer cells to grow. Okay, so we can think of alginates as essentially tiny janitors in our intestines, sweeping up excess ions before they get out of control, because we don't want an excess amount of iron because that can lead to the formation of cancer. And obviously I thought this was really interesting, so I wanted to look at some testing done. And there was actually a lot of testing done in rats. And these rats, they were given alginates to eat. And what we could see is that there was a roughly 50% decrease in the iron absorption in the rat's intestines. And that would prove that alginates do remove iron in bodies. And I thought, okay, that's interesting, but can I test it myself? So I did my own experiment, and I used sodium alginate, which is a compound of alginate, which is soluble in water, so it can be in a solution. And I used ferric fluoride, which is just iron and chlorine. And I mixed them together. And what we can see is that gel beads formed. And this is very interesting because alginates are actually a gel-like compound. So when they bind with something, when they bind with iron or calcium, they should form gels. And the fact that gels formed shows that they actually do bind. I can actually prove that, besides just like research. Okay. So they're good, right? You want to prevent cancer, that's something you want to do. And in fact, in medicine, we have a term called magic bullet. It's something that you use to describe a cure that's really good. So could we describe alginates as a magic shield from cancer? Well, not exactly, because there is always ups and downs with things in medicine and science. And there's a problem when we have too little iron, and that can cause something called anemia. And I just want you to remember the statistic that in anemia, it's that higher rates in women than in men. And another thing that can happen is we have too little. If we remove too much calcium, we can cause hypocalcemia. That's also not good because both of these can cause muscle aches, fainting, hair loss, and we obviously don't want that. So it's important to remember that a balance when we use drugs and in medicine and in science, because too much or too little can often tip the scales, and that's not something that we want. Okay, so this is actually the rates of colon cancer between men and women. You see, every year in the UK we have 44,100 new cases of colon cancer, and men have made up 56%. 12% more. And there's actually some reasons for that. See, first of all, men eat more than women. They have larger portion sizes, and so therefore they're going to get more iron in their diet. The second thing is they eat more red meat. Men typically eat more meat that will contain more iron. But there is one thing that men don't have that women do, and that's periods. See, women lose a lot of blood through their periods, and blood contains a lot of iron as well. So we can see even through statistics, besides the research, that iron is a massive factor for colon cancer. But with a lot of things, I also want to end on a good note as well, because it's not just seaweed that contains molecules that can be used to prevent cancer. There is one thing called MCP, which is modified citrus pectin, and what it is a protein that essentially binds to things around the cancer cells, and it can inhibit or prevent the growth of cancers. And that is found in citrus fruits like limes, lemons, and oranges. And as well as that, we also have something called chitosan. Chitosan is found in the shell of a crustacean, and that also stops the growth of cancers. And I think it's really important to point out that in the things that we eat, in the flowers that we pick, deep down, in the things that we can't see, we have to use like microscopes to look at, there are small molecules and chains of molecules that can be used to prevent cancers and diseases that we haven't even discovered yet. And I think with a new age of growing scientists and medics in this whole room, I think we will be closer to finding cures and preventative treatments for cancers and other diseases. So thank you for listening.